Everybody, welcome to the second webinar in this series of 2 webinars for the MedGames project. My name is Daniel Asmar. I'm a faculty member at the American University of Beirut, and I'm going to be presenting a very small part of this webinar that's intended for people in the domain of cultural heritage. Can I ask everybody to mute their micros, please? Can you please all mute, just so we don't have any intervention? Thank you. So the project is called Gamification for Memorable Tourist Experience, short for that, MedGames. As I said, I will be presenting a very small part of this project, leading up into the talks of the experts in cultural heritage, people from the Directorate General of Antiquities, who have graciously accepted to present their expertise on the various sites that we have in this project. The intent of the MedGames project, it's a project in collaboration with 7 partners across the Mediterranean, where AUB is the lead of that project. In Lebanon, in addition to AUB, there's the Director General of Antiquities, and we also have another 5 partners across the Mediterranean that I'll be citing in a bit. The intent of MedGames is to revolutionize the tourist site experience and steer away from the traditional sun-sea type of experience for tourists and rather move to something less traditional but more of an educational value, if you like, in terms of tourism. The intent is to create new tourist products in different countries of the Mediterranean. For the MedGames, we are specifically targeting 4 countries: Lebanon, Spain, Italy, and Jordan. The partners are 7. AUB, Department of Antiquities in Lebanon, Barcelona called Sardinia. We have Meta Institute, that's a private public institute there. In Jordan, we have the Jordan University of Science and Technology, JUST, and the Department of Antiquities also in Jordan. And these 7 partners are working together to change the tourist experience and turn it into somewhat of a gamified experience rather than the traditional experience. The project objectives: a transnational cooperation to establish transnational cooperation of public and private partners for the sake of development of the gamification experiences at cultural heritage sites. For those who attended the webinar last week, these 3 or 4 introductory slides are pretty much the same, but then from then on, the presentation webinar is completely different. The second objective is to integrate effective gamification. There has been a lot of study in the past decade. Are hoping through this project to use the fact of the gamification to help the tourist experience and the education in the tourism sector. We also, the third objective of this project is to increase tourism flows, and as I said before, to move beyond the traditional sea-sun type of experience, but rather have this more of an educational type of tourism experience at the sites that we have in Lebanon or in the region. So the long-term objective is to develop 40 gamified experiences. And Mr. Sassin, David Sassin, will be giving some examples in my presentation. 10 games per country. 5 of those games will be developed in-house, so by AUB and the DGA, and 5 of them are going to be developed by companies which will be hired through a hackathon and a creative lab competition that we intend to have in the month of October. And then we have another one also in the month of November. The games themselves are of nature of analog and digital. Analog is of a nature similar to, let's say, bow and arrow, or something more like Vacate the Room, something of a physical aspect that you play on site. The digital itself also you play on site, but is more of a computer acts with a console or with a gamepad, or a phone, or a computer to be able to play that game. We then also have a hybrid type game, which I don't mention here, but which is a mix between analog and digital. Last week we spoke a little bit about several examples of those hybrid type games, but I think they're not of interest to this public here. So the hackathons that we have, we've had several requests to postpone the submission deadline. The deadline was originally the 15th of September. We had some good numbers submit, but given the COVID situation and the situation in Lebanon, the economic situation, we were asked to postpone it and extend it until the 30th. And we complied to this request, and we postponed the deadline of submissions to the 30th of September. The second deadline has not changed, so there's the 30th of October. The hackathons themselves will be held on the 17th and 18th of October, and the second round on the 14th and 15th of November. We circulated terms of references, which are conditions of, required conditions to submit to this competition. People used these terms of reference and they submitted their applications, and others hopefully will be submitting by the end of this month. We will be selecting people. Most probably we'll be accepting all the submissions if they satisfy the conditions to participate in the hackathons and the creative labs. And then after the creative labs and hackathons, they will be awarded. We will be awarding in total, in Lebanon at least, 5 prizes, which are 2 digital games at 15,000 euros each, and 3 analog games at 10,000 euros each. Then the participants will have the occasion, or they will have that time, 8-month time to co-develop, these games, or I prefer to call them a gamified experience. Game to kind of belittle the value of the game itself. It doesn't really have to be a game in the sense of Super Mario or whatnot. It's a gamified experience. In other words, it's where people come and they experience the visit in a fun method that's both educational and fun. So that's pretty much the introduction that I have. I'm going to hand the floor to Mr. David Sistine from the details, and then we will have the experts on Msailha, Saida, and Fidar. Those are the 3 sites that we selected for the games in Lebanon. They are going to give their professional opinions and some historical information about these sites. The intent of this webinar today is twofold. One is for people who are the owners of tourist sites to understand the implication of gamification and maybe be interested in doing similar endeavors, and we encourage you to do similar endeavors in your tourist sites, the ones that you are in charge of. And the second objective is for people who were there, who attended the webinar last week, more of an educational value for them to learn more about Msailha, Fidar, and Saida. So we are going to start with the first objective with David Sistine. I'm going to start sharing my screen and hand it over to him. And then once he's finished, we'll go back to the historical information regarding the 3 selected sites. At the very end, we will leave you 5 to 10 minutes to ask questions, any clarifications that you need before we end the webinar. David, it's all yours.
All right, just need some time to share the screen. All right. Just a second.
It's on the present now.
Yes. Okay, so do you see my screen now? The title should be Why Gamification.
Yes, we do.
All right. So first of all, I will start with introducing the concept. Of course, like it was introduced to us, I have used some slides that were prepared by the expert hired by the project, Fabio Viola, which is an Italian expert in gamification. But these are very interesting slides because they make us understand right away why is the need of gamification, and to understand that it's not a luxury, it's not something that we are doing just because we want to improve the experience, but why it's becoming more and more a need for cultural heritage sector. So the first picture is showing like a caricature about how we people who work in the cultural field think that the information that we are showing is the most interesting to the consumers, when in the reality the consumers of the culture and or the visitors could be looking for something else, and something that could be interesting to the person responsible of a museum or a cultural heritage site that he wants to show and highlight could not be actually triggering the emotions and the curiosity of the visitors. So this is why first of all, we need to be involving more and more people to create their own experience rather than giving them a packaged experience that we have prepared as culture producers. So this is the first point. Second point is that the average attention of human beings, and especially for kids that will be leading the society 10 years or 20 years from now, has been drastically reduced. So the goldfish that is usually used as an example to show, or as an example for short average attention or memory, is 9 seconds, whether in the experience that has been done in 2013 showed that the average attention of kids is 8 seconds. So this is why we have to understand that if the kids or the visitors, this category of visitors, is not involved directly, they will not give enough attention to the things we are trying to show, and the involvement we are asking from them. So after in a while that we are not having trips and we are not traveling, I will go for case studies along the Mediterranean, with the exception of France, which is a Mediterranean country, but the location itself is not on the Mediterranean. My point is, I will show different types of games. Some of them will be real video games, some of them will be narrative applications, others will be like experiences, and I will also go through analog games. I will not give enough as much attention to analog games in this presentation because the concept is not as new as the digital games. So first of all, we will start in Italy. I don't know how many of you have heard about the game called Assassin's Creed. So basically this is a game that has reproduced the world, the Italian cities, historical cities of Venice, Rome, Florence, Forli, and San Gimignano and Monteriggioni. So what's interesting is that they have reproduced these cities at the time of the events. So it's a different type of trips. You can be going to Venice 8 times a year, but this experience playing this game will give you another experience that you cannot be having by regular traveling. But the particular interest we will give to two towns of San Gimignano and Monteriggioni, and especially Monteriggioni, where the palace of the main character is located in the game, and it's a town that is not usually visited by anyone because it's a regular Italian town. But the experience and studies that has been done in 2016, and that after 7 years of launching the game, 16% of tourists has admitted that they were there just because of the game. They didn't know about the city, they didn't care about the city, they just wanted to be there because of the game. And this is 7 years after the launching of the game. So imagine at the actual launching of the game how much will and how much tourists this has been attracting. This is one point. Second point is that this has contributed in the development of the economy of these towns, because locals are now promoting and selling not only souvenirs of the town, but souvenirs related to the game itself. and this is contributing majorly in the development of the economy of these cities. So I'm showing these games. Probably the public is trying to or should be trying to imagine how these ideas, sometimes simple ideas, can be implemented in our context that is not very different than these other historical Mediterranean cities. So next example is about the game called Father and Son. It's an application that is free, that can be downloaded on any iOS or Android phone. And the game itself is not educational or cultural. It's a role playing. It's a narrative game. But the thing is, the events are happening in the museum, an archaeological museum of Napoli itself, and in different areas of, for example, Egypt and Vesuvio, Pompeii also, where the artifacts of the museum has been found. So the interesting fact is that after 3 years, we have 4 million users from 97 countries that have downloaded this game and have played it. And the very interesting part is that the game, some features of the game can only be unlocked if you actually visit the museum and put your phone on a barcode, and it means that you have been actually there, and this is how you will proceed with the game. So this is a small trick that they use to attract people to go and actually visit the museum, by just having people attracted in the game, invested in the game, and then giving them this motivation to go physically to the museum. And the purpose is the game for the visitors, but at the end, the museum is registering more and more visitors. In addition to that, something similar to the previous example, that also in the boutique of the museum, there also will be merchandise or souvenirs dedicated to the game, because many people will be there for the game and not only for the museum itself. So this is another example that's also very familiar to what we have in Lebanon, and what the potential is. Third game is in Catalonia. It's quite different. It's a quite different game. It has it's more costly. It has been developed by Sony through the PlayStation game. This is a game that's about an adventure game that is going through different areas of Catalonia. One of the areas we all know, Barcelona, there's Girona, etc. So there are different paths that the player should be taking. Heritage path, there's also the Mediterranean coast path, and through each path they will be discovering different cultural features, such as the culinary arts, costumes, cultural heritage sites, etc. One additional thing they did to market for the project, they involved local public figures. I don't know if you've heard about Carles Puyol, which is a football player. So they also, to increase the visibility of the game, they introduced the characters that everybody knew inside the game, instead of having real historical characters, so that people can be more and more involved, because this area is also known by the football team of Barcelona. So, and at the end of the game, they worked on the aspect of having another end and another transition, by having a section dedicated to realizing your adventure. Playing these games, taking the path, they give you the opportunity, and they give you a booklet related to the game and to the actual site, so that you can physically visit the sites you have been playing in. We are talking about very famous sites of Catalonia, such as the Sagrada Familia, the houses of Gaudi. There's also the Tarragona's amphitheater, etc., etc. So this is the third game. We are always in the digital games. Last game I will show is not something that is new for us. Most of us have seen this. It's also an introduction that not all games have to be digital. Simple games and outdoor games can also be implemented, and they will also have the same or maybe more enjoyable experiences, since many of us are willing to escape the digital devices, especially on weekends. So this is also a need. I will not go through each game by itself, but you can see that many of these games are for children, but we also as adults think that this experience can also be enjoyable for us, because there's a lot to learn about the war techniques, the industries, the games that were used at that time. So finally, I'll go to Lebanon. I will not present the sites from the historical point of view, but I will give an idea about why the DGA decided, what was the vision when deciding on these sites. So I will go through the different sites, starting with Saida Sea Castle, that we consider that is underrated, not in terms of visitors, but in terms of interpretation and historical comprehension, since most of the visitors go there, but they cannot differentiate between the defensive elements, between the dungeon, between the church elements that was there, the mosque. So this was the part that needed to be highlighted, and we believe that through gamification this could be solved. Another is the Burj al-Fidar Tower, that is actually very interesting from the architectural point of view, but has no destination and has no attraction. So we thought that it could be an attraction pole, but having a game there or gamification experience, we could have an attraction pole that would start incenting people to visit it. Same for Mselha, that is, everybody knows it, everybody says, yes, I see it when I'm going to the north or coming back from the north. But very few people stop actually and take the road that's leading to the castle itself. So we thought that it is visible, but actually it's not kind of enough to stop. So we needed that plus to have evolve and have people actually leave the highway and visit the site itself. So this is mainly. I will not take a lot of time explaining why we believe as DGA that we should invest in digitization through gamification, because everybody knows that, especially with the latest events of the lockdowns, people understood the importance of having access to cultural heritage sites without physical accessibility. So this is one point. Another point is the vulnerability of these sites, especially in areas that has that are at war risks, or any of the risks we have been witnessing in the past month. Also, we believe that in terms of sustainability of and durability of the content, and the contribution in terms of scientific studies, this could be also interesting, since the transmission of the material is very fluid and it's very easy to be transferring the material through different entities. So I leave the floor now to the expert that will go through the sites in particular, and that was all from my side. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, David. That was a really nice intervention. So I'll maybe if you can stop sharing, and then
yes.
I'll return again.
Just a minute. Done.
Thank you. Okay, we're back. Thank you all. Here we are. Okay, so just a reminder again of the three sites that we picked. The first one is the Mselha Castle in the north. The other one is the Fidar Tower close to Jbel. Fidar is a small city close to Jbel. And then the last one is the Saida Sea Castle. So to give you more historical overview of the different sites, we have the pleasure to introduce Dr. Anis Shaya, who will be giving his intervention before we have another two experts speak. It's all you.
Hello. Hello everybody, my name is Anis Shaya. I am professor of archaeology at Lebanese University. I will be presenting the castle of Sailhaz and the tower of Fidar. I prepared the details in Arabic, but I can introduce then these things in English or French if it was necessary for someone. بنلاحظ هون بأول سلايد عندنا خريطة 21,000 لمنطقة البترون، وبيظهر فيها راس الشقعة يلي هي منطقة جبلية داخلة بقلب البحر. بنلاحظ فيها باللون الأحمر المنطقة اللي كان فيها الطريق الساحلية بيربط الشمال بالجنوب من الفترات القديمة تاريخيا لسنة 551 ميلادية، لما صار زلزال كبير وانهار كل الواجهة الغربية تبع جبل راس الشقعة وانهار الطريق. وبهالشيء هيدا سبب انه كان من الضروري يلاقوا طريق بديل، تم الخيار على طريق نحو الشرقي راس الشقعة ببين على الخريطة باللون الأصفر، وبينطلق من مدينة البترون جنوبا باتجاه مدينة شكا شمالا، وبمرحل بيصير موازي لنهر الجوز، وتم انتقاء منطقة سهل فيها بناء جسر، وبالقرب منه في مرتفع صخري. على المرتفع الصخري رح يتم بناء راس الشقعة. هالطريقة هيدا بكفي بيخترق المنطقة الشرقية لمنطقة راس الشقعة، منطقة منخفضة نسبيا، وبيعبر باتجاه بالشمال بوديان عميقة. وعندنا ذكر لهالطريق مع توصيف من قبل عدد من الرحالة، من أهمهم فينا نذكر فوشي دوشات يلي هو رافع الحملة الصليبية الأولى يلي اجت من الشمال باتجاه الجنوب مع ريمون دو سانجيل كونت تولوز، وبقول بتوصيفاته كيف كانت الطريق بتشكل خطر كبير للحجاج المسلحين. نيكست. وقد تم بناء قلعة المسلحة هيدي بالقرب من الجسر يلي بيعبر نهر الجوز، وبيرتبط تاريخ القلعة وبنائها بوجود الجسر فوق نهر الجوز وبالطريق اللي بيربط الجنوب بالشمال. بتشكل قلعة المسيلحة نقطة مراقبة عسكرية محصنة بتسمح بمراقبة الجسر وبتأمين سلامة الطريق بهالمنطقة هيدي. بتشكل قلعة جزء من مجموعة تحصينات تنتشر بمحيط القلعة خاصة لجهتي الجنوب والغرب، ولكن في بعض الأوقات تم الخلط من قبل بعض المؤرخين بين هالقلعة هيدي وقلع أخرى مثل بيدي كونيتابل، وهي قلعة ثانية أكبر من هيدي وأضخم منها وبتحتوي إمكانيات عدد أكبر من العسكر. Next. بترجع الأجزاء الأقدم من هالقلعة للحقبة الصليبية من القرن الثاني عشر والثالث عشر، وعرفت هالقلعة ترميمات خلال حقبات متتالية خاصة بالقرنين السادس عشر من قبل الأمراء الأيوبيين من سلالة صلاح الدين الأيوبي اللي هن استلموا إقطاع بمناطق الكورة، وبالقرن السابع عشر من قبل الأمير فخر الدين المعني بحملات التحصينات الضخمة اللي قام فيها خلال حكمه. تتألف القلعة من جزئين غربي وشرقي. يقع المدخل بالجزء الغربي من القلعة بالإضافة لبقايا مسجد وخزان مياه. أما الجزء الشرقي فهو يعتبر الجزء الأكثر تحصينا من القلعة. Next. بننتقل لبرج الفدار. عندنا هون خريطة 21,000 لمنطقة جبيل، ومنلاحظ فيها عدد من التفاصيل اللي تم إضافتهم. عندي بالجزء السفلي منطقة الموقع بيوقع عليها برج الفدار، هي تم بناؤها على قمة مرتفع صخري بيشرف على البحر وبيوقع جنوبي مصب نهر الفدار، وبتبعد موقع البرج بضعة كيلومترات عن مدينة جبيل لجهة الجنوب. ولنهر الفدار ذكر بالأساطير الفرعونية مع الآلهة أوزيريس وإيزيس وملوك مدينة جبيل في العصر الكنعاني خلال الألف الثالث قبل الميلاد. تعتبر منطقة الفدار إذن والأخص برج الفدار منطقة ترتبط مباشرة بمدينة جبيل وتاريخها، وبرج الفدار مبني بموقع استراتيجي ومحصن نسبيا من جهتي الشمال والغرب مع تضاريس الجغرافية للجرف الصخري. يشكل برج الفدار أحد أبراج الحماية بشبكة تحصينات الأمان لمدينة جبيل يلي كانت بارونية تابعة لكونتية طرابلس. ومنلاحظ انه شمال مدينة جبيل بأعلى الخريطة كمان في عنا برج ثاني هو برج ريحاني. Next. بنشوف هون صورة مأخوذة من قلب قلعة جبيل، وبنشوف هون بالأفق مطرمة في السهم بدلنا على موقع برج الفدار، ويعتبر كان خلال الحقبة الفرنجي أو الفترة الصليبية مدينة جبيل مركز بارونية تابعة لمدينة جنوة، وبنفس الوقت هي تابعة لكونتية طرابلس يلي مركز إقطاع ضخم كان، وفيما بعد أصبحت تابعة لمركز الحكم المملوكي يلي كان مركزه مدينة طرابلس. نيكست. بيشرف البرج على كامل الساحل الجنوبي بينه وبين قلعة جبيل، كما بتظهر بيروت بالأفق الجنوبي إذا كانت الرؤية واضحة. نيكست. يعتبر برج فيدار من أكثر الأبراج محافظة على عناصر المعمارية تبعته، وهو بناء مستطيل الشكل بيتألف من طابقين، طابق أرضي مزود بفتحات إنارة بأعلى الجدران من الجهات الشمالية والغربية والجنوبية، أما الطابق العلوي فهو مزود بثلاث نبلات من أو بنسميهم أشار أو أروسلات بجدرانه الجنوبية والشمالية. تعود عمارته بأغلبها إلى الحقبتين الصليبية والمملوكية مع بعض الإضافات وأعمال الترميم خلال الحقبة العثمانية. Next. بتظهر هون بالصورة الواجهة الشرقية للبرج. عندنا الطابق الأرضي بيحتوي على مدخل أضيف بفترة متأخرة من تاريخ حياة البرج، أما المدخل الأصلي للبرج فاللي تم بناؤه هو موجود بالحقبة الصليبية، هو موجود بالطابق العلوي، ويتضمن هالطابق هيدا كمان بنلاحظ 4 نبلات أو أروسليتس، ونفس الشيء موجود بالجهة الغربية من البرج. Next. فينا نشوف بأعلى البرج جهة السقف السطح انه مجهز باجزاء احجار ضافشه لبرا بنسميهم كوربو، وهن موجودين بالجهات الاربعه وحتى الزوايا الاربعه تبع البرج، وهن بقايا سقطات او سيستم دو ماشيكولاسيون كانت بتامن حمايه عموديه لجدران البرج وقاعدته. نيكست. بنلاحظ هون عندنا صورة للمدخل تبع الطابق العلوي، ويعلوه ساقف أو لينتل، وفوقه في قوس لتوزيع الوزن، وهو القوس هو مزخرف. هالزخرفة هاي هي ذاتها موجودة على القوس يلي موجود على الجهة الشرقية من المبنى العماد يلي ملاصق لكنيسة مار يوحنا العائدة للفترة الرومانسكية بجبيل، والكنيسة حاليا هي مسميت معروفة تحت مسمى مار يوحنا مرقس، وهالشيء بدلنا على علاقة تواصل بين ما يعرف الشوفاليه أو الأسياد أو الفرسان تبع برج الفدار وعلاقتهم بمدينة جبيل بالفترة الصليبية. I'm finished. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was very instructional. I would like to note before we hand over to the next speaker that the experts will be available. We have an echo. Can you mute yourself if you're not speaking?
Oui, bonjour.
Can you, لحظة بس قبل ما تبلش بس كلمة. If you can mute yourself if you're not speaking, please. Okay, so I just wanted to say that the experts, we will have 4 experts actually, will be available for your advice and consultation for the groups that make it through and are hired to develop their games. They will have access to the opinions and to the advice of the experts once they start developing their games. So we will have a co-creation. The experts will also be available during the hackathons and creative labs to help you develop your games in the context of a historical, accurate game that we have there. It will have a larger depth to the game itself. Rather than it being superficial, we will have all this historical information injected into the games itself. And that's the whole point of having the experts with us. Okay, Dr. Yasmin, it's all yours.
Okay. Bonjour جميعا. أنا الفيلد اوف اكسبرتيز تبعيتي از اركيتكتشر conservation architects. عندي كمان بي اتش دي ان اركيولوجي بس ان بيلت اب اركيولوجي، وشاغل على كثير قلاع in restoration and in conservation works بجنوب بصيدا بشقيف أرنون بشمعة بطرابلس. So I have some expertise in what I would say the construction techniques and at the same time in the weapons used at that time. So my presentation shall رح تركز أكثر على يمكن not as much the history of the sites themselves than let's say the contexts that could be easily gamified, if I can say. So مثلا بسايدرلاند كاسل هي إذا بنشوف وين هي موجودة بنفهم إنه its location was there for specific purpose. As I'm sure the next image, please, Danny. The next one. Hey, in this image, not the next, the one before. Hey, Sutherland Castle location is very specific. It is. بنشوف بهيدي الصورة القديمة اللي dating سنة 1934 بنشوف القلعة على مدخل البار. وبذات الوقت هون هيدا الماب تبع ارنست رينار ديتنج 1961 بنشوف فيها كمان انه القلعه هي at the entrance of the very old port that dates back to the Phoenician period, and therefore its strategic position كثير مهمه vis-a-vis the city and vis-a-vis the sea. مشان تا واحد يفهم انه any kind of game بده واحد that he will develop بده يكون لازم يضوي كثير على strategic position تبع القلعه بالنسبه للمدينه وبالنسبه للبحر وبالنسبه للمرفأ. Unfortunately today ولا المدينه بعدها مثل ما كانت ولا المرفأ بعده مثل ما كان, and therefore somewhere somehow واحد لازم يبرز كيف كانت المدينه بهيديك الوقت وكيف كانت كيف كان البحر والمرفأ بهيداك الوقت, وعنا صور documents for this. And I think that for all those who want to develop any kind of game related to the Sutherland Castle بده ياخذ بعين الاعتبار كثير هودي الوضعين. ثاني شغله اللي كثير مهمه كمان Sutherland Castle, بفتكر هون زميلتي باتريسيا رح تحكي عن الموضوع, هي انه it was not constructed فرد سحبه, it is a stratification of construction. اذا بنشوف الصوره اللي وراها انا next one please Danny. When I developed some presentation matters in Beaufort Castle اللي بنشوف صورته على 200 فوق على العالي taken by drone, we developed the architectural model 3D model of the castle. بس لما نشوفها هون تحت الصورة بنشوفها انه it's the status how it was in the Mamluk period. بس بالواقع هي مش انه كان على طول هيك الكاسل, كان الكاسل a series of construction تعمروا فوق بعضهم البعض throughout the ages. وهون حطينا لون كل فيز لون. واليوم هيدي الشغله بتنعمل in 2D على ماب, and it is very not simple to understand. while when تنرسم على 3D بيصير ينفهم كثير بسهوله what are كيف كان قبل وكيف نزاد. يمكن كان لازم اعطيكم فرجيكم وحده بيبينوا كيف little by little layer after layer الكاسل it is constructed. and therefore هون كمان بفتكر انا Sutherland Castle it would be very interesting to ما بعرف وين بأي طريقة within each game one should focus on this history of the castle, how it has been constructed layer after layer, مين بلش فيها، مين كفاها، كيف كانت حتى قبل يمكن شقفة جزيرة بالسراوندينج تبع الفينيشن بورت and so on. So هيدي نحن هون يمكن when we gamify the knowledge يمكن مش ضروري بالمية يكون 100% accurate as archaeological information. يعني مسمح لنا يمكن شوي نسوي hypothesis and therefore بس المهم انه نعطي broad idea of how it was and while using the game. Next داني. هون حكى عن الموضوع زميلي أنيس when he talked about الرحالة اللي حكيوا عن كيف قطع جان دي بلان وكيف ريمون دو سان جيل وقت ما قطع بالبوي دو كونيتابل قطع حد محل كان معقول يكون في قلعة اسمها المسيلحة وقطع فوق النهر على الاولد roads that used to link Beirut to Tripoli and therefore بيصير خبرية القلعة مرتبطة بخبريات متعددة لها علاقة بالهيستوري of the site اللي وراها. So هون كمان القلعة it is مزبوط انه هي فيها كذا جزء بس كل هالاجزاء معمرة with يعني those are fortified parts وكل وحده مش معمره عن عبس بالمكان مثل ما معمره والاكسسبيليتي تبع الباب مش معمول بهالطريقه عن عبس كمان كان معمولين بطريقه انه يصعبوا كثير الهجوم على القلعه لألا بيدافعوا على القلعه يقدروا يدافعوا عليها بسهوله. So when somebody enters into يعني وقت ما يفوتوا على القلعه لازم يكون صعب الفوت عليها مش انت لما يدافعوا على القلعه يقدروا يدافعوا عليها بسهوله. And this is the reason for which بيحطوا الأروسليتس وبيحطوا الماشيكوليشن وبيحطوا الاسوموار فوق باب القلعه وبيساووا بيعمروا اجزاء محميه اكثر من اجزاء مش انت اذا تمكنوا يفوتوا على اول جزء الجزء الثاني يقدروا يتصيدون وهلو مجر. So كل هاللوجيك of fortification كمان فيها تتفسر بطريقه حلوه مش انت واحد وقت ما يلعب الجيم يفهم بذات الوقت انه كانوا كثير اذكياء اللي عمروه هيدا القلعه مش انت through the various architectural features يقدروا يدافعوا عليها بطريقه ذكيه وفعاله. So هيدا اكيد لازم كمان كل قلعه وقت ما واحد بيساوي 3 موديل تبع القلعه يقدر يفسر هالعمليه كيف كانت تصير وباي طريقه كل جزء بيدافع عن الثاني وين صعب يفوت وكيف صعب يفوت وليش باي طريقه صعبوه هلو مجر. Next one please. هون انا يعني I had a chance to go to Gamification بفرنسا where they are creating what is called experimental archaeology by creating reactualization of the medieval construction technique. So الونوش بيرجعوا يسووها as they were بيرجعوا بيستعملوها as they were. العمار بيرجعوا بيعمروا as it used to be built at that time. And I think it would be fantastic if into the games في somewhere somehow فينا نعلمهم ونفسر لهم كيف كانوا يتعمروا هيدا القلاع. اكيد it would be a little bit complicated بس انه we will manage to see how to integrate all this construction technique. وانا بفتكر قلعة مسيلحة خرج ينعمل فيها هيك شغله. قلعة صيدا كمان معقول ينعمل فيها هيك قصص خاصة انه بقلعة صيدا they have been using remains of the Roman periods for fortification purposes. يعني بيستعملوا نحن بنسميهم كولون ان بوتيس مشان يسمكوا الحيطان ويربطوا الحيطان ببعضها ويردموا بين الحيطان مشان يصير كثير صعب يقدروا يخرقوا الحيطان وتصير الفورتيفيكيشن كثير قويه. So these construction techniques are very important if we can introduce them in the framework of the game. يعني. Next one, please. كمان كيف فهمت انه في ببرج الفيدار some games, Olympic games and other games into which one can imagine which kind of weapons to be utilized. يعني اوكي القوس والنشاب هي very common game كان يستخدم throughout the ages من الايجيبشن لحد الميدل ايجز وحتى للمودرن تايمز. بينما في كذا kind of weapons that are specific to the medieval periods. وانا I would say that في كذا publications بيحكوا عن كل هالweapons اللي هن specific to the medieval period, and these are classified as shock weapons, armed shock, hast weapon يعني اللي بيكبون بايدهم مثل لانس ومثل ستيك. اما الارم دو جي ثرون ويبن مثل جافلين، اما السلينج. اما الارم دو تري مثل دارت ويبنز اللي هن بيستعملون بالقوس والنشاب اما بالاربالست. وهودي يستخدمون بكل التحصينات والقلاع تبع الميدل ايجز. Next one please. كمان انه هين كثير يدافعوا بهيك قصص، بس الاسولت وسيج ماشين تولز هودي كثير مهمين، لان هودي كانوا الطرق اللي كانوا يستخدموا مشان يقدروا يهجموا على القلاع for all those who were attacking the castles، ويقدروا يفوتوا عليهم من ورا ويعرشوا العسكر على السلم اللي مخفي من قدام مشان يقدروا يفوتوا جوات القلعه. اما الباترينج رام مشان يفتحوا يكسروا الابواب، اما الحيطان يقدروا يفوتوا جواتها ولو جر. So how they kill all these tools are specific of the Middle Ages and can be utilized in any kind of game. بفتكر هيدا اخر وحده. وشو في وراها دانيال next. هيدا this is some kind of a game I imagined. ما بعرف اذا انتم فكرتوا فيها، لان انا بفتكر انه بيصلحوا لي كمان انيس وباتريسيا انه all these towers that were spread all along the Lebanese coast كانوا meant for to observe خاصة بالمملوك periods and then even بالأوتومان period to observe what is called بالعربي الثغور، يعني les échelles du Levant بالفرنسي، اللي هن من وين عادة كانوا the crusaders الفرنجة يهجموا تيفوتوا على بلاد الشام. and therefore اللي قاعد على راس البرج لازم يقدر يعرف اللي هاجم عليه من وين جاي. so عادة بيكون في عنده بيرق هيدا، والبيرق تبعه بيدل اذا هو جاي من بيزا من جنوبا اما من اسطنبول اما whatsoever. so recognition of foreign ship coming from the Levant or from Europe via the blason would be interesting game. ما بعرف اذا imagine it، بس انه كمان هيدا knowledge حلو لان بيصير يعرف مين كان مع مين ومين ضد مين وهالمجر. I think this was the last one.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Yasmin, for a very enriching presentation. Our next guest is Dr. Patricia Antaki. The floor is all yours. Patricia, if you are there.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes, okay. So hello everyone. To make it simple, I'm just a passionate medieval archaeologist. So I will first assume that everyone knows at least a little bit or maybe has seen the wonderful sea castle of Sidon that Jean has just talked about now. Well, it's not definitely not the largest castle in Lebanon that we have, but it's one of the most interesting ones of the medieval period at least. And this is, as you can guess, the reason why it was chosen by DGA as one of the Med Games sites. Now, why is it interesting? Actually for two reasons. First, because we actually know its history, unlike Burj Fidar and the castle of Sailha, for which we don't have historical texts. So we know who built it, who captured it, who occupied it, who destroyed it. And second, it's a house of the tremendous wealth of architectural material that it hides behind its walls. And hence, this fortress provides the visitor with a huge amount of information. The information that Med Games here intends to communicate via a funny, educative way. That is through the proposed virtual games. Now, I won't be talking about these games because they're under discussion, under preparation, and I think we should keep it as a surprise. But I will be rather talking about the importance of the site. So please, slide 2. Next, yes. So let me first present to you in a few words, obviously a very brief overview of its very rich history. So we know that Sidon, like other cities of the area, was occupied by the Crusader armies in 1110. The city, which became known as Sajet, which means arrow in Old French, became an important lordship of the Latin kingdom of Jerusalem. Now, in order to defend themselves, besides the already existing city wall, the Crusaders built two fortresses, one on the land and one on the sea, and both you can still visit today. So, but let's focus on the sea castle. We know it was built by the Crusaders in the winter of 1227-1228, as you can read. We also know that the fortress served as a refuge twice, once in 1253 when the city was attacked by Muslim troops, and another time in 1260 when it was attacked by Mongols. Now, the same year, the castle and the city were sold to the Knight Templars, who established their headquarters there. Now, in 1278, the place was attacked by the Count of Tripoli, Bohemond of Antioch, I think. Anis, correct me if I'm wrong, please. So a crusader himself, of course, because he was in conflict with the Templar order. He succeeded in invading the sea castle and imprisoned the Templar garrison. But the Templars were later able to come back to it until they were attacked in 1291 by the Mamluks and had to escape by setting sail to Cyprus. Now, the Mamluks carried out the partial destruction of the castle defenses from fear of the Crusaders' return, and this is what they always did everywhere else. And then they settled in the castle, as attested by an inscription that you can see to the right in the middle, which is located today on top of one of the doors. Now, under the Ottomans, the castle was occupied by a Turkish garrison and was damaged various times, in particular in 1840 during a Turkish bombardment against the Egyptians who were at that time in the town. And so you can still see today in the walls the impact of the cannonballs, and you can still see the rested cannons lying on the floor like the one you see at the bottom. So next slide, please. So as you know, the fortress sits on a rocky island, some 70 meters off the shore, and it's connected to it by a lovely bridge with arches. So it's, as Jean said, it's really controlling the harbor, the old harbor at least. It was constructed by the Crusaders, as we said, in 4 main stages, each indicated here on the plan with a different color. So I don't know if you see well, but where you see the A, so it's the green color for the first stage, and there was another symmetrical tower to it where you see the letter B. The blue color is for the second stage where the tower A was enlarged, and it's today the dungeon, as you can see in the left-hand side picture. And they built another tower C, so they destroyed tower B actually, and they built tower Tower C. It's a bit complicated. The third stage is the one in orange. So they enlarged Tower C, it became Tower D, and they built a huge hall to the north, which was made of 2 stories. So we still only have the ground floor today, and it had lovely Gothic arches, of which only I think 1 or 2 still remain, and you have this also remarkable. And there was also a church that was built on top of Tower D, and you can still see its remains. So it's next to the Ottoman Mosque, which was built later. And the first stage is the one in purple color, and it corresponds to the outer defensive wall. So next slide, please. So we have several entrances in the castle, which are very interesting because actually each has its own set of defensive devices. So here you can see the main entrance of the castle, and you can see on top of the door what was known as the bretèche, that is the matriculation, the balcony, which had openings in the floor, which allowed the defenders to throw ugly stuff on the attackers. So obviously you don't have the bretèche complete here anymore. You only have the corbels, which are these protruding blocks which supported the bretèche. So next slide. So you have other entrances which are very interesting also. Yes, so the one to the right shows you on the door jamb the grooves where there was this vertical door, called in French la herse, so it's portcullis in English, that's a technical term, so it's the door which would slide in these grooves, so that was a way of protecting the entrance. We are at the main entrance. This is the back of the bretèche, the matriculation. So where you have the arrows, you can see the grooves that were related to the chains that were from which were the drawbridge, because there was one was operated in order to allow access or to prevent access to the castle. And down there to the left you have square slots for the drawbars, which would also close the doors. Next slide, please. Features also are the arrow slits. Next, please. Yes, thank you. So the arrow slits, as you know, are these openings through which the defenders could throw arrows or the bolts of crossbows on the attacker. So here you have a plan of the dungeon, and you can see how the walls are pierced with these arrow slits, les archères, and in the middle, in the center, you can see an active archer. Next slide, please. So other particular details that you can enjoy during the visit are, for instance, as Jean has told us, the way the walls are built. So as you can see, they are made of huge sandstone blocks. Some are quite impressive, together with these columns inserted in them to strengthen the walls. So these columns are usually made, as here, of granite, and they have been reused from older Roman monuments. Next slide, please. So for those who are very curious, if you have a close look on the walls, you can also notice some signs, some marks scattered all over the walls, like the one on the left. This is an N-shaped sign. This is what you call the mason marks, which are the kind of signatures that were engraved by the stone cutters on the blocks. Now to the right, you have these kind of engravings in the blocks that you mostly find inside Annecy Castle on the outer defensive wall, and these were used as they would receive the metallic dowels or clamps that were used to hold the blocks together, so to make again the walls stronger. Next slide, please, and I will end with this one. So finally, you can find also very lovely decorative elements, like the one to the left, this remarkable Gothic capital, which is today that you can find inserted in the dungeon wall, and to the right you have this very nice character in relief, which is found on one of the corbels of the entrance, of the protege, of the entrance. And it probably represents a knight with a spear, a knight who welcomes you in the castle to enjoy, I hope very soon, a very special and original visit. Thank you. And a journey back to time. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that one. Let me see if no, I'm not muted. Thank you for that wonderful presentation, Patricia. That was very nice. We are still sharing the slides. We're at the here. I want to close with a question and answer. If people have questions, please feel free to ask a question. We like to end with this slide here where we say, we're game. Are you? I hope the information presented, first of all, by David, incentivized the guardians of other cultural heritage sites to develop similar games for their sites. On one hand, on the other hand, we hope the presentation given by the experts will help the people who are developing or proposing their new games at the 3 sites here will have had a small, succinct, but yet sufficient historical background to get them started. And again, I reiterate the fact that the experts will be with us throughout this exciting journey, and you will have access to their depth of knowledge through the hackathons and then beyond while you're developing your games. So I'll stop sharing the slides, and then we'll open the floor for questions if anybody has questions. If you want to ask a question, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask a question.
Hello everyone, my name is Ronald. Sorry, my name is Road to Eden. This is the game I'm developing. I have a question concerning the language. Is there any specific language we should develop the game in? I don't know. Should it be Arabic? Should it be English? Should it be French? Or all 3 languages?
Okay. The official language for the ENI, so the funding agency, is English and French. So okay. You're welcome to develop in English or in French. Courtesy translation in Arabic for Lebanese visitors is always good. So we encourage you to have the 3 languages if you like, or at the very least have English and Arabic if you like.
Sorry, I was talking about digital gamification.
Oh, the digital game should be primarily, you should at least have the English as one of the languages, and if you want to attract the local community, you might want to add Arabic as well.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions from the public? If you want to ask a question, just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask a question.
Actually, I have one more question.
Sure, go ahead. No, good question.
I didn't manage to get the start, so I don't know what's the next step. So we got the presentation now, but what's the next step? What should we do to present?
Did you attend the webinar last week?
Yeah, I couldn't attend due to personal...
Let me just quickly brief you. Last week was a webinar on the technical aspect of the project, and this week is more on the cultural side. Now, on the 30th, we extended the deadline for the submission of both digital and analog games until the 30th of the month. We will, since you missed the beginning, we will circulate this entire presentation, make it accessible to the public again. And Dana in the chat will give you a link to the submission page where you will find all the necessary documents that you need to fill out if you intend to submit to the call for proposals.
All right, thanks.
Okay, Dana, can you please include that in the chat? Any other questions? I want to reiterate the importance of submitting both digital and analog. The games do not have to be digital. you also have the option of submitting a completely analog that has, it does not even have to have the computer there. So that would be, so then I included the link there for your information. So completely
Okay, so I
analog
have
game.
a question.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, so is the game required to be in one of these 3 tourist locations? Does it have to be restricted by that?
Yeah.
Or can we do some other?
The Director General of Antiquities, the DGA, selected these 3 sites. The focus of this grant is to give visibility to less known touristic sites. Instinctively you might say, why didn't you develop in Byblos or in Baalbek or in the bigger sites? But we're trying to give some life to the less known touristic sites. Thank you for the question, Farid. Any other questions?
Okay, that makes sense actually, so okay, understandable.
Okay, we're having questions on the side. How about copyright for the designer, author, and researcher? Okay, so we had that question last time. The IP in the copyright is you own it. However, we get the license to use it on the given sites perpetually. So in other words, after the project is over, we still have the right to use that information at that site. If you decide to develop a similar game any other place, that IP is yours, and you have the right to do that. The objective of our project is not to make money. We will not be making money. We just want the ability to keep playing these games at these sites. Actually, the objective, the implicit objective that I did not mention here, is to encourage companies in the field of gamification and cultural heritage. So we want companies who are developing these games to succeed, and we are doing all that we can to allow you to succeed. Is there any specific link where we could rewatch the first webinar? Yes, we will post. The first webinar, we will post parts of it. Unfortunately, we had a technical issue, but we will post most of that first webinar, and we'll give you the link to that as well. We have your emails, so we will send you the link to that webinar. Dana will make sure to do that. Yeah, Dana, just note that. Okay. The same goes for the analog for both games. Yes, Nelly. How about copyrighted? Yes, for both. So I think I answered your question. Correct, Nelly? Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? If you're shy, you're welcome to ask your questions just by typing, if you like. And if you'd like to unmute yourself and speak, that also works.
I wanted to know if a 3D model of the Saida castle is available, or
yes, we finalized. The DGA is doing those 3D models for us. They fly a drone on top of it and create the models for us. They did in Sailha 3 weeks ago, and we were supposed to do Fidar, and we actually flew on top of Fidar and Saida. Unfortunately, with the explosion that happened in downtown, or in Maram Khail and on Jumayzi, the DGA has been tasked heavily in reconstructing and flying the drones on top of all the damaged buildings and recreating 3D computer models of all those buildings. So I was promised by the person doing that, and I think he's attending, Salim, I saw his name here. Salim promised me that we would have Fidar and Saida in the next week digitized. So the answer to your question is yes. We're working on digitizing and getting the 3D models of also Fidar. We already have Sailha, so of also finishing Fidar and Saida soon. Salim, you got the question, so we're counting on you to develop that for us.
Is it possible to is it available? Can we have it?
We can give you we can give you Saida this week.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we give you Fidar and Saida in the following week. I'm just waiting for Salim to finish them, and I'll give you them as soon as they finish.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But your help is available if we want to build the ancient site. It's possible to get help from you guys.
For those people who will be awarded, you will have the support of the technical staff and the at the webinars, of course, at the hackathons. You will have support of the technical people and the historical experts at the hackathons. Once you're awarded, if you are successful and you're awarded the grants, then you will then you're pretty much on your own for the development of the technical, but you will have the historical support throughout.
Okay.
Okay. The reason we give you that historical support is your models and your games have to be vetted by the Department of Antiquities for historical accuracy. We cannot release any games that are not correct from a historical point of view. Any other questions? Okay, I think Dana posted a link there to the first webinar, if you'd like to watch that. Thank you all for attending. If you have any questions, medgames.com, you can send your questions there. It's info, I think, info@medgames.com. We will answer your queries and questions. Make sure to submit your analog and digital games before the end of the month. And join us in the hackathons on the 17th and 18th of October. Thank you all. Thank you for the speakers for their rich presentations. And that's pretty much it for today.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
Yalla.
Bye.